Hi everyone. I know it's before Passover. People are not necessarily thinking right away about preparing for Passover, but I wanted to give you a really great recipe you can make at home. And especially now that you're home, might be a good time to practice it. If not, at least you can take notes and see how it's done so that when it's closer to the time and you are already kosher for Passover, you can make these amazing tortillas. So first of all, I just want to show you what the tortillas look like. I have two different kinds. This is a regular flour, actually it's tapioca flour, but this is a regular tortilla. I also do this with sweet potato. So the base of this is made from actual potatoes and some tapioca. So you won't need a lot of ingredients. I have the recipe on my website, and you can go to www.deliciouswithout.com, and there's a section in the about, and it says recipes, and you'll have to scroll through. I think it's through the second page, and there'll be the one for the sweet potato and the one for the regular potato. One of the things that I did today is I actually added a little bit of oil, but you can make this with or without oil. Just wanted to let you know in case you're following the recipe. And I just want to get started and show you how easy this is. I'm going to need obviously a rolling pin to roll up my dough, sort of like a wide spatula so I can easily pick up my tortilla. And you can use a cutter, you don't have to. There's different kinds of cutters in very popular stores, like, I don't want to name names, but kitchen supply stores that you can get little forms to make whatever size you want. The smaller that you make them, the easier they are to manage. I am ricing up the potatoes. That means it's like a masher. This is a little gadget that you just put together and it mashes your potatoes. So what I've done before just now is I boiled some potatoes, and I'm going to actually weigh everything. Give you some cup measurements. Actually, again, you can find this on the website. So I'm starting off with 234 grams of potato, which is mashed potato. Usually it's about like 2 of these. I'm trying to give you some kind of idea of what you're looking at. And it's around a cup of, if you don't have a scale, it's around a cup of mashed potatoes. I'm actually using Idaho potatoes. I'm gonna take a knife, because my potato is too big for this little rice masher. I'm just gonna stick this inside. And the way that this goes is you line it up. You line it up and you use your muscles. So that was one potato. And I have another little piece of potato to go through because I'm already at 200 grams. And let's see if this does it. Yeah, so this is already more than enough. So I have about 250 grams. It went over a little bit. Doesn't really matter, it's all good. From here, I'm gonna put in a cup of tapioca starch. So I'm putting my scale, it's my handy dandy scale, it's just a digital scale, and I am going to tare it, which means I'm gonna put it back to 0 so that I can actually get, again, I just weigh it. But it's about a cup of tapioca. There's tapioca starch available for Passover. If you can't find it and you want to use potato starch, that's also fine. The reason I'm using this is because there's already potato in here, and if you're going to use a starch, it might be a better idea to use a different kind of starch. And tapioca is actually very stretchy, so that kind of gives this potato its stretch. I don't know if you can see, but I'm stretching it really strongly. It's not going to fall apart. Next thing is we have some salt. You want to give it some flavor. I am using a half a teaspoon of salt. You can add garlic powder. You can even put in all kinds of I don't know, like Italian spices or whatever you like. You can also chop up some olives or some whatever there's on the market. I'm gonna need 2 eggs because also that gives a lot of pliability, which I'm going to grab, so just give me 1 second. I'm going to my fridge to get 2 eggs, and I'm going to put in 1 at a time. There we go. That's good. Just checking for blood. And there we go. Second one. Okay, so now I've got all of the ingredients. That is the entire recipe. It's that simple. What I'm gonna do is just take a wooden spatula. I'm gonna take my scale out of here. And I'm going to mix it up. Yeah, we forgot the oil that we said we were going to use this time. The oil I like to use just because it gives it a darker look when you actually put it on the grill. So I'm going to put in 1 and 2 tablespoons of oil. There we go. And this should be good. As soon as I get this all worked up, it'll become a dough. And you don't need, the great thing about Passover, we don't have that many appliances. You don't actually have to use like a machine for this. So you can just make it by hand. I'm going to lay it all out in pieces. It's probably easier for me to work the dough like this. So I'm just going to gather it all up on the table and knead it a little bit. So I just want you to know that I actually made about 9 tortillas. They're around 6 or 7 inches, like you see the size over there. You can make them smaller or larger, and also the timing depends, the timing on the fryer depends on how thick you make them. So this is kind of a sticky dough, but I don't know if you can see. It doesn't have to be kneaded that much as long as you get to, here, come have a look, Jake. So this is my dough. I'm gonna cut it up into little pieces. I would say about 80 grams, which is like about this. So I put them in little balls. I already know they kind of are around 80 grams. So I'm just gonna do it by eye. And you can make these balls and leave them out. And you can even wrap this whole thing and put it in the fridge for a while if you want. I'm gonna go wash my hands soon and come back. I actually usually wear gloves for this part just because it's a lot easier. I can just change my gloves when I get all sticky. And I'm gonna leave the extra dough over here because each one, as I make them, will require some cutoffs because I'm gonna use my handy dandy cutter. So give me a second, I'm gonna wash my hands and we're gonna come back. I'm actually doing this live like this because often when you do a video and you just show the end result and all the fast, easy paces, you don't get all the details of what it is to do it. I'm going to put on my pan. So I have a non-stick pan that I'm using. You can use a smaller pan if you prefer, which would be like that. But I like a big pan because in case the tortilla in the center has room to move, and if it's very hard to work with, so it makes it a lot easier. So I'm going to put some of my tapioca. You can use some potato starch if you want, or tapioca starch. And because they're a little bit sticky, I like to put it straight inside a little bit of flour. And I'm going to press it out so that it looks, thank you, you can come a little closer. I just wanted to sort of keep it round and then flatten it out And keep turning it so that it doesn't stick, because these things do stick. And try to get it into some kind of a circle. Now doesn't have to be a perfect circle. Here's my spatula that's easy to make sure that it doesn't stick. But I like it to be like a circle. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my circle and cut out my form. And I can use all of these scraps for another tortilla. And then just when I'm happy with it, I keep going thinner so that my tortilla is nice and thin. Now there's nothing wrong. You can also do this as a thick tortilla. There's no problem with it. The only thing that I suggest is that if you're using a lot of flour, the flour will burn. And so you want to sort of take off as much flour as possible. And I'm going to wait until the pan is hot. I believe it's hot now. Yeah, it's hot. So come, Jake, you want to come with me? So that's Jake, my photographer. My son and photographer. So as you see, it just slides right onto the pan. And I'm going to let it with no oil, nothing. Just let it sit. And in a little bit, you'll see some bubbles. And once the bubbles happen, then you can turn it over. And it'll take a few minutes on each side. So it might be a little bit boring to sit here and watch, but I will continue to make some more. And also, I want to show you, I actually, come over here. This is my steamer, my couscous maker. So this is where I actually did the steaming of my potatoes. I'm sure there's other ways to do it. But I like the moisture retained when you steam. And this one over here is actually the sweet potato, which I will do a separate video for later on once they cool. On this side, I have another spatula that, a smaller one that I can use. You can see on the side it's not browned yet and there are no bubbles. If you give it a few more minutes, it should be okay. I'm going to start to make another one over here so you can continue to see what I'm doing. And I'll focus on here. Again, I dip as much as you can to make that circle and roll it out on a not so floury surface so that it doesn't become too much with the tapioca, because if it does, then it will burn, which you don't want. There we go. Now, I have to say, it doesn't matter. If you're not fussy about the size, you don't need it to be circular. You can just use it like this, and that's it. It won't make any difference. It tastes just the same. Okay, so we have our first bubble. You see that bubble? That's our first bubble. Maybe you want to wait for another few seconds so that the bubbles will start to happen a little bit more. Another bubble here, a little here, a little here. We can peek underneath and see. It's a little bit crispy. It looks a little bit like a matzoh. We're going to put the other side. You see how there's a little bit of tapioca still on there. It's okay. In between each one, we're going to wipe the pan so that the tapioca doesn't get too, it doesn't burn, because it'll just turn black. So you want it to work as cleanly as possible. And another few minutes, and we'll finish off this one. Again, I'm going to use my cutter because I really like the shape. And then it goes back again. Just want to show you that even with all the scraps and the pieces and all that stuff, it will make another really good tortilla. So don't throw it out. The scraps are super good. And then I can roll it out just a little bit more to get it as thin as possible. I like them thin. Come, so we're gonna go see what's over here. You can see it's lightly browned. It's very, very, very pliable. I'm gonna let it sit for another few minutes. Not so many minutes actually, just to get it a little bit more brown. I like when it's not too raw. I shouldn't say raw, actually. I like it when it's a little bit more crisp to start. It will turn a little bit more. There you go. You see? Now, you could turn it even more than that, but once you let it sit for a while, it will actually get soft. So what I'm going to do is go to the sink and take off the excess with a paper towel, and then start off again with another one. And the way that I like to pile them up is one on top of the other, like so. And then you can really take a little bit of water or something and just take off the extra tapioca that's sitting there to make sure that it's okay. And when you put one on top of the other, they get very moist in between them. So even when they're actually cold, this is from this morning, they're still very, very flexible. They don't fall apart. There we go. So I'm gonna start one more, and I think we can end this video. Here we go. Just pull it out this way, let it go onto the pan, and that's really it. It's really simple, and it's just very simple ingredients and very easy to do. And you can have, I know it's not like everybody eats matzoh, which is really crunchy and hard to work with, and this is a really nice soft version. You can actually put olive oil on top and put some rosemary, garlic, or whatever other spices you have. And you can also use it as a base for a pizza. You can do lots of things on Passover with this base. So I hope you guys experiment this time, this Passover, and happy eating.